Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of The Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, host also of RT's talk show Crosstalk. Well, the moment has arrived. It's Sunday, and the fate of the world will now be decided. It's thumbs up and thumbs down time. I'll go first. In response to a Gaggler's comment last week, who complained that we're always doing thumbs down. Isn't there anything good in the world that you can say thumbs up to? I said, okay, that's a fair point. So I'll start off with a thumbs up. And
I have one thumbs up. I have
one thumbs up. Okay, well, I only have one thumbs up, but at least I'll start with that. I think the end of the nonsense with Nord Stream 2 is a thumbs up. Is that also your thumbs up? Oh dear. Well, all right, that's our mutual thumbs up. That finally the United States has dropped an absurd fight that it could never hope to win, which is to prevent this natural gas pipeline. The United States hadn't even learned its lesson from the 1980s. That was at the height of the Cold War. That was Ronald Reagan was in power. Even then, the United States wasn't able to stop the gas pipeline from the Soviet Union to Germany. So there was really never any hope that the United States could stop it. This was entirely in the interest of Germany. The German economy depends on a regular, reliable, cheap source of energy. Apart from anything else, it was done by private companies. It wasn't even done by the government. So you can coerce and bully Angela Merkel as much as you want, but ultimately these are private companies who had signed these agreements. So the fact that the United States has finally acknowledged reality is a thumbs up for the week.
Yeah, well, that's kind of a low bar for a thumbs up, I would say. Recognizing reality here. Right. It was one of my thumbs up too, because I think that there's got to be at least a few people saying we really want to piss off the Russians and Germans simultaneously. Is that really a smart thing to do? Right. And if the goal was somehow to protect your new ally and all that, or Ukraine, well, forced regime change in 2014 didn't do any good. Okay, I mean, all of these, the law of unintended consequences really came tumbling down on everybody involved. Okay, so. Again, George and I try not to be ideological when we see something that is good, even if it's from the Biden administration, we acknowledge it, okay? I'm glad it's in the past, okay? And maybe something that can be learned from, okay? We'll see if there'll be a Nord Stream 3 and see what they do. But the interesting thing is that the rabid crowd, the rabid Russophobic crowd, they'll never be satisfied. They'll never be satisfied whatsoever. It doesn't, Russia, its interests are illegitimate. Even German interests are illegitimate. Okay, I mean, don't you people understand how crazy these people look and act?
Right.
But of course, they're all on a grift. It's a good payroll for them. Okay, starting with our usual tradition of thumbs down, Nancy Pelosi Select Committee on January 6th. The way it all panned out, Kevin McCarthy, our least favorite Republican on the gaggle, I guess he had to pull the plug on it, and then you end up with Liz Cheney on it. I mean, this is just ridiculous. George pointed out very well last week is that Nancy Pelosi's statement about the Select Committee is the result of before they even started, they've already written the conclusion here. This is obviously intended to divide, nothing less, okay? It is actually to hammer away at January 6th, to divide the country based on a very, very superficial understanding. George and I have made it very clear here from the get-go, and immediately after it happened, and then our commentary since then, we would just like one thing: what happened, okay? And then we can draw conclusions. But as usual, these people that are so ideologically possessed, they've drawn their drawn up their conclusions, and now they search for evidence to reinforce it. You should read that. Should ring bells. The Mueller report. Okay, go ahead.
All right. No, that was. I mean, what you bring up is absolutely crucial. The Mueller report. That when the Democrats, who then in the minority, launched all of these hearings in the aftermath of the 2016 defeat, it was always the goal was to present Trump as having been leveraged to power by Putin. It was all to try to establish that there was collusion. There was never any serious attempt to investigate anything. And of course, then we had Mueller, the Mueller investigation, which was always directed at proving something for which there was no evidence, and for which they knew that there was no evidence. Because remember, they knew all of this in early 2017, that there was absolutely no evidence of
no predicate.
What did they do? They continued the whole thing going into 2019. First of all, damage to Trump in the 2018 midterms, but they were doing it in order. Hey, we can trap people into perjuring themselves, and then we can tout. Hey, look, all these people we've prosecuted and convicted, but all of them were done by because they were lying. So, but going back to this select committee, what the Biden administration, what Pelosi is doing, is trying to use this January the 6th in order to delegitimize Trump, delegitimize the Republicans who support Trump, and that's exactly what they were trying to do after 2016. It's a very cynical, rather creepy political operation, because it's one thing if you're just doing politics in Capitol Hill, but when you're doing it in the rest of the country, demonizing
half the country
people who don't vote the way you want them to vote, then I think it becomes much more sinister.
Okay.
So my next, it's all thumbs down from now on. The next is Biden's bizarre performance during the CNN town hall. I don't think there's ever been anything like this. Any presidents who are just completely incoherent. I mean, they're just rambling. They're just so stringing together words that mean nothing. And in normal circumstances, there would be a public outcry led by responsible media figures, responsible politicians to say this can't go on. This person is clearly not up to the job. It's a big position. Who is what? He doesn't seem to know where he is. He doesn't know what he's talking about, which means somebody else is running the show. Somebody that we haven't elected is running the show, and that something has to be done about this. But instead, the media have gone into a defensive crouch and pretend that none of this was happening. I think it's a very, very, very deplorable situation.
Well, you really hit the nail on the head there. Where's the responsible media? Right. Of course, Hannity's going to have his. At least he stopped saying "sippy cup." Thank you.
Yes, quite.
But I mean, CNN hosting the town hall. They should have written an op-ed on their webpage that we as all voters, all Americans should be concerned about the well-being of the chief executive, the president of the United States, and we have to take this seriously. That would have been the responsible thing to do. Instead, they just cover. And actually, Don Lemon was finishing his answers for him.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. You mean the FDA? Yeah.
I mean that's a pretty well-known organization. I mean, anyone that dabbles in politics a little bit knows what that is. Okay, so I think it really shows how possessed these people are that they have to safeguard. And also from just a purely pragmatic political point of view, the vice president of the United States doesn't seem to be a whole lot better. That she's just simply incompetent. Okay. And it really shows how these people that adhere to this ideology, it's amazing. The more incompetent you are, the more likely you're to succeed. And I don't say that lightly, but I think there's some truth to it.
But of course, you raise a very interesting point, because of course, if you were to move to the next stage, which is, well, how about invoking the 25th Amendment and replacing the incumbent with the vice president, then the Democrats are stuck with Kamala Harris, who will lead them into the 2022 midterms, and then, of course, the presidential election of 2024. They know they have no hope in hell of prevailing with her in charge. She's obviously a very unlikable person.
Well, and of
in the primaries, so they're kind of stuck with a person who, you know, who at least has, you know, kind of a superficial likability, but they, you know, but therefore they have to pretend everything is in shape.
Yeah, but my sense is if they go down the path of the 25th Amendment, I think that Harris would be primaried within the party, and that's of course the nightmare they want to avoid. They want to have a united front, but I just can't see some of these Democrats that are, you know, just as devious, but certainly more competent. I don't think they would let this stand. I don't think they would let it stand. I think that the Democratic Party would find itself in a very
I agree, but I think they would be primaried. Very difficult to primary and
it is.
Remember when Gerald Ford, who really also had, you know, even less legitimacy than Harris, because he was appointed, you know, was Spiro Agnew was on the 72 ticket, so Ford was never even on the ticket, and he was primaried by the great Ronald Reagan himself, and even so, Ford prevailed. So it's going to be quite hard to.
Also, I mean, I'm agreeing with you. You had Ted Kennedy try to primary Jimmy Carter. Okay, and you know, I mean, the Kennedy dynasty was in full blast then. Okay, but my point is, she may prevail, would most likely, historically speaking, would. The damage, though, it would do to the party, yes, it's very difficult to comprehend that. Okay, so what they did was they really boxed themselves into a very, very bad place.
Yeah. No, I think that's a very good point, because historically, whenever an incumbent has faced a very serious primary challenge, that incumbent went on to either step down or lose, you know, like Truman with Estes Kefauver, Johnson with Eugene McCarthy, Jimmy Carter with Kennedy, and of course, George H.W. Bush with Pat Buchanan. You know, you got a serious primary challenge, you're done. That's the case. They box themselves in, as you say, because of Biden's ridiculous stricture. He's going to pick a woman of color. I mean, he committed himself to this absurdity.
Yeah, the law of unintended consequences again. Okay, yeah. I mean, they're so boxed in on so many different fronts right now, and of course, anyone coming to questioning it say, "Oh, but you prefer Donald Trump." I mean, see, no, that's not what we're saying. But that's exactly what they would say. Okay. I just want to go back a little bit about the select committee here. Talking about, this follows really well, because we see how we could see potential primary for the 2024 election, but now we see the disruption in the Republican Party as well with Liz Cheney, okay? And I think that is what she's doing. And you know, she's representing a moral, how to describe it, normal, responsible GOP. No, Liz, it's just the reverse. You're going to make the base hate your party and your leadership and people. And I don't think Kevin McCarthy is going to survive this at all. Okay, that guy's got to go. I mean, talk about an incompetent featherweight. Okay. So, I mean, Liz Cheney, I mean, she's a wrecking ball, a huge wrecking ball, because all of the work they had to do to move her out of leadership, and she got it, and then you move. Oh my God, they're tiptoeing around the military-industrial complex. Maybe Dick will get angry with us here. That shows the rot in the Republican Party, the rot. Okay, and it's got to be.
Yeah, no, that's true. She was hoisted into that leadership position by McCarthy. And again, why? I mean, it was obvious that the party had rejected the Bush-Cheney era. He put her in. I suppose he thought she was going to be a brilliant money raiser. She turned out not to be in any kind of a money raiser. And then when she was clearly, going against the base of the party and going full pell against Trump, he retained her. There were moves within the party to remove her from a leadership position. He, put his own authority on the line, said, "No, I want her there." And what happened? The day after, she gave him the finger. She showed her complete contempt for McCarthy. So yeah, I mean, I think that's what Liz Cheney. I think she probably will attempt some kind of a run for the presidency, she'll raise a lot of money. I mean, there's money to be had in this line of work. But then I think she'll end up as a commentator on CNN or MSNBC.
And how many boards will she be on? How many boards will she be on?
Yeah, and at all times, intervene here. Wherever it is, send in the troops. Bomb them.
But what this tells us, I think, is it's because George and I don't have any affiliation or appreciation, affection for the two major parties at all. Okay, we hold them both in contempt here. But Liz Cheney's behavior is a very strong indicator of how the elites, the Republican all across the board, they coalesce together and protect themselves, and they are at the expense of the electorate. Okay, so this is a perfect example of the worst kind of bipartisanship.
Right.
Okay. All right. We you're up because I just see now.
Yeah. Next up is Great Britain. Now, Great Britain, we have had occasion to speak of in recent past. Their incursions in the Russian territorial waters. They're going to sail to the South China Seas. They're in the Taiwan Strait. They're going to send in their covert operations people against Russia and China. And now they've got a crisis on their hands. And what's the crisis on their hands? They got migrants coming into the country, crossing the English Channel. And, this is on a regular basis. You've got hundreds of people every day crossing the English Channel. The British don't know what to do with it. They've given the French a whole bunch of money, say, hey, can you do it? Here's a nice, cool 60 million or whatever quid. And say, hey, can you handle this for us, please? The French pocket the money and then do nothing about it. They say, hey, you left the EU. What the hell do we get? But they do pocket the money. They make sure of that. And so here you are. You have this global Britain. You're going to be doing this, that, and the other. And you can't even keep your channel safe. It's even more of it's kind of a joke on the level of the American border. So migrants, hey, no time for that. But we're going to deal with Crimea.
Well, I'm sure somebody in the opposition will say, well, maybe we should get the Royal Navy to start patrolling the channel to protect our sovereignty. They're over in the South China Sea. They're in the Black Sea. Oh. Nothing to do about the defense of the country and its sovereignty. Right. This is absolutely absurd. This is ridiculous.
Absolutely, yeah. It's exactly
what they're doing is they're seeking out monsters far afield while they leave the front door open.
Right. So if you're somebody, you're a citizen of Great Britain. What are you concerned about? Are you concerned about what's going on in Crimea, or are you concerned about hundreds of people decamping every day crossing the English Channel, who will then, of course, are entitled to all the nonsense of they make an application and so on and so forth. So what are they concerned about? Well, obviously they're concerned about a regular invasion of their island from migrants.
Yeah. And Lithuania wants to build a wall, but they're not condemned for that. I mean, the politics of immigration. See, it's very, very simple. Everyone, I can give it to you in a couple of sentences and keep it and use it. Okay, you can only have an immigration policy if you have a border. Okay. No border, no immigration policy.
Exactly.
Simple as that, everybody.
You have to police the border, and you have to enforce the immigration laws. And you basically have a principle, if you arrive illegally, you get thrown out. That's it. I mean, automatically, you're dumped somewhere. You've arrived illegally. But the British seem unable to do this. And as you said, the one time everyone went into action with Lithuania. My God, we're being inundated with immigrants from Belarus. Europe goes into action. We have to protect Lithuania.
Okay. Just don't say build a wall. Just say something else. Okay. Luke Harding, the clown of the supreme crown prince of Russia gating. He came out with a story in the Guardian. We're not going to repeat it here. We did a video on it. But I think that what I want to comment here is obviously a thumbs down. And it's a thumbs down on Russiagate. Why do I say that? Okay, he breaks his story that he somehow confirms, which he doesn't, but that Trump all along has been an agent of the Kremlin, and Putin specifically made that decision. What I think is interesting, George, did Rachel Maddow run with it? Did CNN run with it? They were very quiet. I think even the Young Turks might have, but I don't think so. You know what that means? They all know that Russiagate was a fraud in the first place.
Yeah.
Because here they are, given this ridiculous, outlandish story. If Trump had been in office, they would have clung to it, and it would have been news cycle after news cycle after news cycle. But because they let it go, I don't think even Democracy Now! Carried it. Because of their silence, it's proof that they themselves know that they perpetrated a fraud on the public for almost 5 years.
No, I think that's right. And that leads to a very interesting point, which is the Steele dossier. Now, remember, Steele was hawking that dossier around among the media throughout 2016. And the media kept their distance from it. They said, hey, there's no proof for any of this. Where's the evidence? They didn't run with it, even though he was constantly meeting journalists and telling them this. And Hillary Clinton was pressuring journalists, hey, here's this dossier, go with it. When did the dossier suddenly become significant? When the FBI essentially endorsed it. And so therefore that's really the crucial moment. And the FBI endorsed it, because the FBI did not keep its distance from it, even though the FBI knew that it was all absolute nonsense, and that these sources that Steele had already disowned all the things that Steele claimed. So that's the kind of the origin of that conspiracy. It was a conspiracy hatched within the bowels of the government, and once the FBI essentially endorsed it, remember Comey did that whole shtick of presenting Trump with these lurid allegations. He did it for one reason only, so that now the media can run with the Steele dossier. The media then, of course, say, well, if the FBI is behind it, we can get behind it. But you're right. I mean, it was always a hoax. But should Trump, as we head towards 2024, Trump becomes a more of a significant menace, Russiagate will be back. We will be hearing again about the evil machinations of Putin.
Yeah. But it really just shows just how dishonest the media is. If they truly believed that they would have heralded this, but they didn't. And it shows you what they really think. But George is absolutely right. It's always there, dusted off, ready for use.
Exactly.
Also one size fits all. Okay,
right.
I mean, pull it out.
That's it. Okay. So my next up is Fauci. Tony Fauci. He was confronted by Rand Paul. We did a podcast about that. And clearly, Paul demonstrated that Fauci had, at the very least, seriously misled the Senate in his previous testimony in suggesting that the United States government was not funding gain-of-function research in China. But what I think, I heard an interview yesterday with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and I think he kind of illuminated the sort of the poisonous influence that Fauci has had. And it's kind of common sense, but he kind of highlighted this is a very, very powerful bureaucrat, because he disperses funds, and therefore his view prevails, and everyone has to follow his line. And for decades, this has been the case, because universities, professors, research institutions depend on money that is dispersed by Fauci. That's how Fauci managed to get everyone on board for the whole wet market theory, because the scientists who signed the Lancet letter said, "Hey, you don't get on board, you don't get a research grant." And then universities then pressure the people on their department. Hey, we need this 20 million bucks, so, if that's what Fauci says, you follow the line. And this is really very, very sinister that you have this bureaucrat who wields this power through his funds. I mean, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he likened him to, he's the J. Edgar Hoover of medicine research. So, Fauci's a bad guy. And I think that there are going to be more and more exposés of what Fauci's been doing over the years.
And he definitely falls into the category of what some people call, which I kind of like, is the deep state. You always think of like the CIA and the NSA and all that as a deep state. No, Fauci's part of the deep state as well. And these are unelected people that have access to vast resources. And if people that you don't get behind the party line, you're left out. You're canceled. Okay, and it shows how the political system is so entirely corrupt. Okay. Because then you have someone that is of this magnitude of power that up until the pandemic, I mean, I'm sure, the people that get money from him knew who Fauci was, but he wasn't a household name.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all, yeah. He was around back in the sort of the AIDS era, the 1980s. I mean, he's been at the top of U.S. government really about 4 decades.
Highest paid bureaucrat in the U.S. government.
Right. And you saw during that exchange with Rand Paul, when he suddenly dropped that whole avuncular, jovial demeanor, and you saw this really malevolent figure, imagine calling a senator a liar. I mean, that
was completely choreographed. He did that. He knew he was going to have to pull that repertoire out. And actually, I watched it too. Remember the fingers? You don't know what you're talking about. That was a perfect screenshot for all of the liberal media protecting him. Okay, they all did that, and you're right. The facade dropped. He went in for his kabuki theater.
Yes.
Okay, and that was the kabuki theater is what he wanted everyone to remember, not the substance of the conversation.
You're absolutely right, and that's why he was then immediately hailed on MSNBC, and Maddow had him on, and O'Donnell, and all the rest of them. Hey, you took on, you spoke truth to power, or whatever the cliche is. So yeah, absolutely, I had to do it. It's a dirty job, but I had to do it. You're right. Of course, it was. This was how he was going to confront Rand Paul, and as you say, the media would pick up that whole the two finger exercise.
You and I did a separate video on this. Is that my fear is because he has it's a protection racket around him. He feels safe, even though there might alleged been malfeasance here. Again, we stress all of the time here. I'm not out for Fauci's head. I'm out to find out what happened. That's all. Okay. Sorry, thumbs down. The DOJ decides it's not going to look into the nursing home cases in New York. This is a travesty. This is, again, let's find out what happened. And then we can apportion blame and have punitive actions if necessary afterwards. But so many thousands of elderly people died. I think that their survivors have a right to know the decision-making process of how that happened. That is only decent, okay? And now the DOJ, wipe that clean and still go after 500, 600 people that were loitering at the Capitol. It really shows the tone and tenor of the people in power.
Well, it's kind of an interesting issue. The DOJ, when the Democrats are in power, they know exactly how to use the DOJ. You silence any investigation in what your side is doing, but you unleash the DOJ against your political enemies. So, that's why, you're absolutely right. They just said, no, we're not going to investigate all of the, essentially, the malfeasance on the part of Andrew Cuomo and the lies and then that came subsequently, because he clearly lied in order to distort the record of what he did, by sending the patients into these nursing homes. So that's how the DOJ operates. So again, are we going to look into Hunter Biden? Nah, no, I don't think so. Might be divisive, but in a way, you have to admire what the Democrats do, because the Democrats, they just know this is how you use the agencies of government. The Republicans have no idea of that. I mean, Trump has, he puts in this guy. He first of all puts in Jeff Sessions. What does he do? He recuses himself. So this is the most important investigation of the Trump administration. The survival, Trump's survival was on the line. And then his attorney general says, nah, I think I'm just going to recuse myself. Can you imagine Obama's attorney general recusing himself when his boss's survival is on the line? Was it Holding, Eric Holding? So he didn't do it. And same with this Merrick Garland. They know exactly how to use the agencies. They understand.
Even John Mitchell stayed by Nixon.
Exactly. I mean, that is what you do. I mean, so that's what an attorney general. An attorney general has always been seen to be someone who's protecting the president. I mean,
well,
he hired his brother, to whom he was very close, as his attorney general.
Yeah, but you and I coming up, it was always the Nixon DOJ, the Johnson DOJ, the Bush DOJ, the Obama DOJ, and then when you said Trump's DOJ, it's not his, it's not his. Remember that? All through our life, we've always said, it was, the Biden DOA. But if you said the Trump DOA, oh no, it's not his.
That's right. Yeah. Exactly. That was the horror. My God. He's influencing what the DOJ is doing. Yeah, that is what he's supposed to do. They work for him. So
let's make it very clear to everyone. So it's like, for example, a president comes in and he brings in his attorney general, and this is fair game. He says to his attorney general, my top concern is the fentanyl crisis. I want resources to deal with this crisis. Okay, and that's my DOJ, and my DOJ is going to go after the fentanyl crisis. That's fair game. That's what they're supposed to do. Organized crime, maybe when you look at the Kennedys, every single administration has its points of a hierarchy of points. Okay, and so and it can be done for good or bad reasons. We're seeing it right now, I think, obviously for bad reasons. And the Trump DOJ, dare I say it worked against the president the entire time.
Right. No, that's it. But I think that the Democrats, what I was saying, the Democrats have a much greater understanding that this is a very powerful tool that we can use. We protect ourselves, and we mobilize it against our enemies. And unfortunately, the history is such that this is the way the DOJ is used. It's only Republicans, particularly Trump, who had absolutely no idea of how this is done. I mean, you kind of look back upon the era of Bill Barr, and you wonder, what the hell was he doing? What did he think he was doing during those 2 years he was there? Because he certainly wasn't helping his president, the guy who hired him and who expected loyalty from him and who expected him to investigate what needed to be investigated. I mean, Barr did really nothing. I mean, he undermined and in the end, he helped destroy the presidency.
That's what happens when you politicize the justice system. Let's see here. Oh, you're up.
Was that you or me? I think it was you. Okay. So my next is the NSA. Now, remember the NSA and Tucker Carlson. Remember the NSA had did all sorts of maneuvers and say no, Tucker Carlson wasn't the target of
denials
and so on. But now, we've had reports saying that essentially the NSA admits that it had unmasked Tucker Carlson. In other words, it kind of says, we didn't target him, but we unmasked him, which is something you're not supposed to do. And we disclosed that he was involved in conversations with third parties in order to get an interview with Putin. We disclosed this to the media. This is an absolutely shocking behavior on the part of the NSA. And the idea that they're going to get out of it by saying, well, he was never the target of an investigation is nonsensical. Why are they unmasking a journalist? There's absolutely no justification whatsoever. And then disclosing it to the media is an absolutely shocking behavior.
Hey, but it keeps happening, George. It's not supposed to happen. It keeps happening. I mean, look at the flurry. I mean, we probably have lost count of the number of people that were unmasked during the after the election in November 2016 to the inauguration in January 2017. I mean, there were so many, and so many people were given the right to unmask. It's just. Again, it repeats itself. Again, there's no responsible media. And the sad thing is that in principle, this is absolutely wrong, and it is against the law. But because it has to do with, well, because it's Tucker. Oh, well, you know. See, this is how it happens, everyone. This is the slippery slope. Okay, we saw after Trump was elected. Well, journalistic standards have to be put into suspension. Because this is different. No. That's when we need real journalism the most.
Right. Exactly. And of course, all of that unmasking, which the Obama administration went absolutely crazy about, there's been no accounting of that. Even though all of whom had lied because they denied that they had been engaged in unmasking, even though those documents have been published, that they all made. Samantha Power, she kind of walked away. No one ever explained. She made about 300 unmasking requests. Why does the permanent
at the UN?
At the UN, why is she engaging in unmasking? And then she blathered something about, I don't know anything about this. It was all done under my name. Really? Well, that in itself demands an investigation.
Even worse.
Exactly, even worse. There's been no pursuit of that, and of course, the case of Michael Flynn. Still, we never found out who it was who unmasked.
Susan Rice lied on PBS about it.
That's right, exactly.
I mean, you remember, why we remember that? Because you used a double negative, which was like, wow, that was a clunker. Okay, all righty. My last thumbs down is members of the GOP want to give Biden war powers over Cuba. Isn't this amazing, everyone? After, Joe did the right thing, finally getting out of Afghanistan. So let's try a new one, okay? Let's spin the globe. Where are we going next, okay? This is outrageous. Right. Outrageous. No, don't give him war powers. Take war powers away from the president and give it back to the Congress where it belongs. And Congress has been totally irresponsible for 30 years about this, okay? And end the embargo. Then let's start talking about what to do.
Yeah. No, it really is just ridiculous, because when you think of the debacle that we've already had. I mean, we already had one United States invasion of Cuba, at least in the recent past. We'll talk about the more distant past, but in the recent past, ended in absolute fiasco. In any future military caper against Cuba will also be absolute fiasco. We had all those, the assassination attempts on Castro, all are absolute disasters. The notion that you can start embarking on this, and without any real basis of believing that that you have any kind of support there in Cuba. I mean, yeah, people are discontented for all sorts of reasons. I mean, COVID, the lockdowns, the end of tourism, and then going further back, loss of support from the Soviet Union. There are a lot of reasons for discontent. That doesn't mean they're going to start supporting any kind of U.S. military action.
So, George, I wonder what the percentage of people in Cuba, what percentage is in Cuba that do not like the government, think the government is incompetent and corrupt. What percentage of those people, yeah, I want America to bomb Havana. Okay, how many people are like that? No. I have to wonder very, very few.
Yeah. That's it. I mean, it's completely irresponsible. The influence of these crazy interventionists, Marco Rubio, Ted Cruz, who bizarrely, well, not so much Rubio, but at least Cruz, purport to be the leaders of this Trumpian, non-interventionist, populist movement. How are you going to be, leading any kind of a populism if you're going back to the worst, even worse than George W. Bush? I mean,
But
it's
see,
absolutely insane.
the reason why it can happen, because it's called a bad habit, it's called colonialism. And Cuba has always been subject to that mindset.
Right.
This really predates the neocon thing,
Oh yeah, no,
so Cuba's a white man's burden thing, I mean, it's, the awful treatment that Cuba has been on the receiving end from American foreign policy for going all the way back to the Spanish-American War. I mean, it's just truly, truly devastating. And that mindset is still there.
right,
That's one of those things that predate the neocons,
right.
okay? And it really, it shows it's part of that DNA, okay?
Oh, I think that's right. I
You
think
know,
that's clearly the case. I mean, that it's the loss of Cuba was a huge blow to the United States, and that is why the anti-Cuba animus that has prevailed through all of the administrations. Remember, I mean, Kennedy. I mean, he obviously the Bay of Pigs, and he fired the people who were behind the Bay of Pigs, the head of CIA, and so on. But what did he do then? He planned the whole, assassination operation, to try to oust Castro some other way. So this is Democrat, Republican, they've all adhered to this thing of, Cuba is just something that, just irks the United States so much.
wake up in a sweat thinking about Cuba,
Right,
okay?
right. Yeah.
I'm done.
Do I have anything else? Yeah, I mean, so the other day, and I wrote about this. You can see it on the Gaggle locals page. The High Representative of Bosnia has decreed that genocide denial, celebration of war crimes, any kind of awards to war criminals will henceforth be crimes in Bosnia. And he just simply amended the criminal code. Now, first of all, you kind of think it's now been 25 years since the end of the war. Why exactly is there this creature called the Office of the High Representative? I mean, he's not been elected to anything. He has no connection to Bosnia. The current Office of High Representative is an Austrian. And how does somebody who's not been elected to anything get to alter the criminal code and decree that henceforth anyone who engages in genocide denial or celebrating of war criminals will be imprisoned? So that's one aspect of it that is just shocking. The other aspect of it is that this is an attempt to crush any kind of critical thinking, research, historical rethinking. That's what the historical investigations is supposed to be about. You're supposed to re-examine events in the light of whatever new documents and so on. No, there's an official account, and you are supposed to adhere to that official account. And anyone who deviates from that will be imprisoned. So this is a little like the whole science thing. And so it's been now decreed. This was genocide. This was war crimes committed by the Serbs. You try to question that, you're going straight to jail.
It's very interesting. Someone pointed out to me a couple of years ago, and I think it was really interesting, is that if RT had existed, if the gray zone had existed, Jimmy Dore had existed during that conflict, we would have gotten very different narratives, okay?
Yep.
And you're absolutely right, because people are, at least some of us are very curious and demand answers and demand truth. In this case, they want to make sure all the dots all the I's are dotted and the T's crossed, and closed case don't want to talk about it anymore. Because there's, as you very well know, and a few other people, Marcus Papadopoulos, for example, know a much more balanced and critical history of the breakup of Yugoslavia. Those of us, when I was living in the United States, that was happening. I had the New York Times. I had NPR.
Right. That's right.
How could I know?
Right.
And actually, I feel very bad in retrospect, because now I do know a lot more things. And I'm not an expert on it, but I know who to look to talk about these issues.
Right. No, I think that's a very good point, that in the early to mid 90s, there really just wasn't the alternative sources of information. So if you didn't really know very much, you just accepted the version put out by the New York Times, the Washington Post, and then all the rest of the Western media, and they say, oh well, hey, these are the bad guys, these are the good guys, these are the people you have to support, these are the people you have to demonize, and that was that. Now, by the time NATO was bombing in '99, I mean, the internet was beginning to go into operation, and the propaganda campaign wasn't really working as smoothly as they had expected. And that's why Tony Blair was absolutely furious about how he wasn't getting a sufficiently sympathetic hearing in the BBC of all places. And remember, they bombed the RTS tower in Belgrade. There was a reason for that, because the Serbs were actually getting information out, and this was being relayed to Western analysts or journalists, whatever. And suddenly people were getting a different version of events. So I think the world has changed, and in that ways, I think the world has changed for the better.
One of the memories I have of that time is I don't know what part of the former Yugoslavia it was, but there was a young girl, like 12 or 13-year-old girl, that had been hit by some kind of shrapnel, and she had been injured. And the Western media just went swooped in on it, and she was evacuated and all, and I'm showing all the. I mean, I'm not doubting that a young woman was hurt. I'm not doubting that. What I'm saying is it was being used as a prop to support a war that most people are saying, how do you pronounce this place, and where is it, and why are we doing this? And you're right. I mean, they did it the best they could to sanitize it, and they did a pretty good job.
It was a very good movie,
because only years and years.
Yeah, there was. Remember in Wag the Dog, they tried exactly that thing. Hey, without bombing, hey, let's get a girl. That's good. She's very sweet looking. Let's make it even better. Let's give her a cat. She just rescued a cat from this destroyed building. That's it. So that we'll have her, holding a cat. That's it. We've got the right image of the war. So yeah, that was how it was manipulated. But what we have now is this idea of an official history. There's no such thing as official history. I mean, history is constantly revised, rethought, reinterpreted, re-examined. But no, I mean, this is really what NATO is about. NATO has to adhere to this line. No, we were these heroic rescuers. We came in to rescue the poor Muslims from these dastardly Serbs. They have to adhere to that story, because once you question that story, you sort of start questioning what the hell.
Well, I guess, if you take that line, they're the good Muslims, because we bomb a lot of other Muslims in the world. Right. But okay, I'm getting picky. Yeah. Okay.
The good Muslims, these are the Muslims we support, as opposed to the bad Muslims we don't support. Yeah, no, that's right. But the intervention in Yugoslavia was really the founding document of the sort of post-Cold War NATO. Well, why do we need NATO? Oh, look, we went to Yugoslavia and we rescued the Muslims. We rescued the Kosovars. And this has been their rationale for the past quarter of a century. So once you question that, then you think, you were an absolute disaster. We don't need anything that makes things worse.
That's right. Well said.
That's right. Do I have anything else? No. I think that's it. So I think
enough people are trembling in fear as it is, George. I think
that's it. So now some people can breathe a sigh of relief. Oh, they're safe for another week.
Okay, everybody, we're on local, so go to thegaggle.local.com. George and I are doing a series of Zoom interviews with gagglers, which is turning into a really interesting experience. Very smart people out there. The Gaggle store is up and running. We have a Q&A coming up, and live streaming is within our grasp, as I like to say. And I go over to George to talk about what.
Right, we got the tip jar. And we definitely appreciate anything you can contribute to the tip jar. There's a lot of hungry constituents for the tip jar. Buddy has been more than helping himself. Look, he's very hungry, you know, because the tip jar is getting a little on the empty side. So
Well, when he hears tip jar, he's
yeah, I
starting.
think it's, it's the Pavlov's dogs. Tip jar. Suddenly his saliva starts drooling. So yeah, so we very much appreciate anything you can contribute. We don't have powerful billionaires. Oh, that was I meant to say just a quick thumbs down when I mentioned the powerful billionaires. The 200 million, no, it's $100 million for Van Jones, no strings attached gift from Jeff Bezos. So that's a 100 million, no strings attached. So he doesn't have to perform any projects or anything.
And how many other journalists are waiting for their 100 million so they never say a bad word about Jeff Bezos or Amazon ever again? And they'll be enforcers for Jeff Bezos and Amazon.
Absolutely, exactly. Yeah, me. Give me money. Yeah, no, that's right. So anyway, we don't have Jeff Bezos offering us anything. Not even $5. So whatever you can contribute, most appreciated. But remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.